Welcome to another episode of Decentralized TV here on the platform Brighteon.com. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon, joined by my co-host, Todd Pittner. Welcome, Todd. It's great to have you with us today.
Hola. Nice to be here. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to this amazing guest.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. Let's bring him right in. Let's not waste any time. Our guest today is with Bards FM. He's the founder and leader of the Bards FM phenomenon, whatever you want to call it. We'll ask him about that. Scott Kesterson joins us, who I always jokingly but truthfully say somehow has inherited the voice of Tom Selleck as well. He's got a great voice. Welcome, Scott, to the show. It's great to have you on today.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much for having me on. Todd, nice to meet you as well. What a
very nice meeting you. Very nice meeting. Can I ask the first question, Mike?
Go for it.
So I've been binge listening to you, Mike, and it's one of those things where I just kind of really ticked off that it took me so long to know that you exist. Can you tell me what Bards FM means?
Sure. So Bards FM, actually, FM is field man, is where it comes from. And how this started, we were originally titled Bards of War, which was the film I did, which is Bards of War, Fighting is Everything. That was the first of the films I did from Afghanistan. And as we moved along, and really it's just a lot of what God put on my heart. It's like the Bible is a field manual of war. I think we miss a lot. And so that's really where it comes from, because the whole channel is built on faith and knowledge. And those two absolute rock solid pillars lead us truly to restoring this nation and getting our sovereignty back. So that's then the whole nature of the channel.
You know, when I was I'm 42. I'm 58 now. When I was 42, I had some things go on in my life that's like sometimes when God brings you to your knees so that you might look up. And there was a Christian friend, he worked for me. He said, hey, you know, if God wrote a book, don't you think it would be a good idea that you actually read it? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he goes, and he gave me this ESV Bible. And he said, it would be a gift to me if you would read this as if it's true. What do you think about that?
No, I just think it's awesome, because I think that's one of the biggest deceptions we have going, is that people have been convinced that it's not true. I just tell a quick little anecdote. This isn't directly, but it's a pastor, a really good pastor friend of mine, Pastor Dave Bryan from Yuba City. And he had a guy who was an Indian Sikh that reached out to him and said, I want to read the Bible. Can you give me a copy? And Dave talks about this. He's like, oh, I guess, boy, because I was going to give him the book of John. I didn't want it to come across as too violent of a text, etc. So he presents him with the book of John, and the guy says, no. He says, there's more to the book. Where is it? So Dave then gives him the New Testament. The guy says, no, there's more to this. So finally, Dave goes, all right, look, here it is. So about 30 days go by, and the guy calls him up. He says, I need to meet with you. So Dave's like, all right. So they go to the park, and they meet with him, and then he says, this book is a book of war. And Dave's telling me the story. He's rolling his eyes. He's like, I didn't want to go there quite right yet. And the guy describes to me, he says, this God you have, he says, this God is a God of justice, of mercy, but when he doesn't like his enemies, he destroys them. And he says, but he gives them all sorts of chances. He says, I want to know this God. How do I join?
Wow, that's great.
Like, I think we miss the warrior, and this is a lot of what I emphasize so much in my channel, is the warrior of Christ, because we've come to a place here in our nation that our churches have become completely neutered. We're living with a what I call the skinny jean neutered pulpit that teaches compliance and weak spine ministry, and it's not. I mean, our country was founded on the Black Robe Regiment, which were mighty warriors behind the pulpit that literally took off their robes and stepped into the militias and led great campaigns against the British. Now, that's what the origins.
Let me jump in here, because I know there's a question burning in the minds of our audience, and they're wondering, what does this have to do with decentralization? So that's where we're going to go next, Scott, which is that your organization is doing something quite extraordinary at the local level, which I would consider to be a decentralization of political power back into the hands of we the people, locally, county by county. And this is a critical part, but it's more than just political power. It's about food production and barter and commerce and all of this. So could you kind of gently lead us into this project that you, not just you, but the people associated with you also are working on and why it's so critical for the future of any republic.
Oh, absolutely. I think, first of all, it's going to segue right where I was, because we forget that in the colonial period, we were very decentralized. In fact, it was a group of women about 1771 that didn't like the Stamp Act, and they started a boycott locally of British tea, which they was against the crown, that then spread across the colonies, that led to one of the most decisive elements of the war, which we never think about, which was 50% drop in revenues from the British Empire because of boycotts of product that started by just a group of women in a local community. The power of one, the power of a few, always local. Politics is always local, and the true church, in the sense, has always been within us, and it has not been institutionalized, and it hasn't been aggregated or controlled by the federal. That's the place where we are today. So in the sense of decentralization, it's right in this very center of Scripture. It's the basis of common law. It's how Christ saw the church being built, and it's what platform we've been working on literally for the last 3 or 4 years now. We've been working on a decentralized concept called county by county. And that concept I rolled out, I believe it was in the summer of 2020, as I recall. And that was all just as God laid on my heart. And really what it is built on 7 critical pillars that are not done by some top head organization, nonprofit trying to raise money to make it all funded. This is individual efforts at a home level that build a foundation of sovereignty. And those 7 pillars, we can go in as deep as you want on these, but just to give you an outline.
Yeah, please name them. Sure.
So we have the first one is home churches, which is the center of our faith and building a stable foundation in our homes. The second one is homeschooling. Now, keep in mind, we started this in 2020, well before the COVID con and all of this. So the emphasis was really starting to build out the capacity for homeschooling. And when I say we, like I said, this is a constant theme in the podcast, and literally thousands and thousands of people across this country and across the world have been modeling their lives around these 7 pillars. So, and we don't put a banner on it and proclaim that, hey, this is our organization, this is our thing. It's just a way of life that we've embraced that just has spread brilliantly. And that's all God working. So the second one was homeschooling. And that included not just homeschooling your children, but starting to build capacity within a community. So that means like building community pods where parents would support each other. And we've had a number of those going, reaching into the elderly and retirement community to offset some of the burdens of teaching that a single parent might have, and just helping and assisting parents in filing out their home paperwork or finding resources to use for their children, just as a supporting element. The third element then is what we renamed from Victory Gardens to be Patriot Gardens, which was to start revitalizing the whole concept of growing and taking responsibility for our food. So we've hit the range of those topics, from growing things within an apartment where you might be doing sprouts and container gardening on a balcony, to a small urban place where you're going to just get rid of your toxic lawn and start getting into your backyard and converting that to a productive landscape. I know I have one of those going. I have 2 models of this going. One is a highly productive urban homestead where literally on about 1/8 of an acre, we produce all of the fruits and vegetables that we need for an entire year, and have room to add chickens and rabbits, as we'll probably do this year.
Wow. That's impressive.
So, right. It's just really talking about intensity and taking responsibility for all this. And then that scales up to like the other project I have, but up to any size. Like we have a second project, which is 80 acres, where literally I'm raising cattle, raising bees, looking at rotational, agriculture, where we're using the natural rotation of the animals to revitalize the soil. Everything is grass fed. At this point, we haven't needed any outside injects to support cattle. And everything about county by county was shaped so that every individual could embrace every pillar, and in one aspect or another, direct their life in that direction. And in so doing, you're changing your paradigm and how you live. And I think that's the most important piece here, is as we start to regain control, we realize that our foundation of sovereignty really begins in the mindset and direction in which we walk and break from the slave mentality.
It also strikes me, Scott, that you are building, you and your community, all the people there, are building the kind of systems that will survive the coming financial collapse and the food supply chain collapse, which has already begun, by the way. But what you are helping bring together are the kinds of systems that will themselves be regenerative. So when there's a collapse, obviously there's going to be a lot of people that don't survive the turmoil that's coming. And perhaps the United States of America government that we know today will no longer survive, which would be a blessing, frankly, to everybody. Then moving forward, who's going to create the next society? It's people like you and those that are part of your community.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. And I think that speaks a lot to the core of America. I mean, I'm blessed to have just a really amazing following that just works together constantly, supports one another. Every Friday we do, just a kind of an example, every Friday we do a dedicated prayer show for prayer requests. And that's one of the 3 shows I do each day. But on Friday, we dedicate the entire block to prayers. And we're at about 3 hours of solid prayers for people.
Wow.
But we have a core group of people of about 150 to 200 in live chat. Beyond that, I mean, and then people will listen to this. I can tell you the download amounts on these shows. And we have a core amount that'll stay there for 3 solid hours and pray for whatever needs are coming. And then when you look at those download numbers, which, by the way, these are 3-hour shows that show a consumption rate of upwards of 70%, which is amazing, that we get in several thousand people that engage that show even afterwards. So I think this reflects very deeply the passion that we have here, because these are people that love God, love their nation, love family, and they just need to know some places sometimes where to step and where to go and be inspired, and then they dig in and go. And that's what I'm most impressed with.
This is amazing. This is really game-changing what you're describing, and I hope our audience fully understands the profound nature of this, that if you have strength locally with your community, with skills and commerce and food and health and education, all these things, you no longer have to be a slave to any kind of centralized government system. And so the overbearing central government no longer has power over you, because you're not isolated in your own community. You're not helpless, where only the government can be your God or your provider or your parent, right? You have local strength. And that creates resilience and freedom at the same time.
I couldn't agree more. One of the big things, I'm just going to roll back very quickly because I don't know if everybody knows my background, but I was a information and PSYOP guy in a very unconventional way, working with a joint special operations group in Afghanistan. And one of the most successful programs we developed was not a PSYOP program. It doesn't even fit in information warfare. It would fit into education. And we literally built a program to train people in fundamental skills. This was a program I led in agriculture, like preserving food, home hygiene, just some basics. And we put these into villages, and it was amazing, the empowerment. In fact, radio intercepts from the Taliban were picked up by many SF teams, and it was always the same issue. Leave these villages alone and leave these guys alone. Because the power we were doing wasn't politically driven, and it wasn't hostile driven. It was empowering the people to take back their own abilities in their communities. Essentially, that model is carried over for what we're doing here today, which is empowering the individual at the community level. And to highlight what you just said to your audience, there is nothing more powerful than when you begin at your home and you can build a foundation that has resilience, and then share that in your community. And even if you're not all in sync on how to do it, it's not a single template. But what you're doing is you're creating layers of resiliency that when there is a disruptive moment, you can turn to one another and start forging those deeper bonds. But everybody has a mindset of being able to adapt. And that's the huge win right there.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. Todd, your thoughts so far?
My thoughts so far, one of my favorite questions is to say, where are the white hats out there? Because we can see so much decentralized evil, right? And it just sounds to me like what you have accomplished here is to assemble white hats who are just leaning in, leading with their chin, not their hand out. And it is kind of the only way that I think that we're going to be able to. I was writing down some notes in one of your podcasts. You'd mentioned a few things, and I thought, man, it kind of puts into view the bad guys. When you think about decentralization, there's decentralized stupidity, there's decentralized confusion, decentralized sin, famine,
Tyranny.
false flags, depopulation attempts, shutdowns. It's just like decentralized injustice, could go on and on and on. And what you have created is a decentralized weapon of God, really, to be able to battle against that. So thus, I think the White Hats, I applaud you. This is very exciting.
Well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate it. That's kind of a segue, Mike, if I may, just kind of talking into the next layer that we're working on here.
Go for it.
Which is what we call Operation Vineyard. And this is really a commission that God put on my heart to really focus our attention onto what is really what I truly believe, and I think that it's a true statement from God, the most important issue here, and that is our children. And I really want to kind of run the tendrils on this just a moment, because we tend to get very lost. The 7 pillars of county by county, and the principal issue there is it's focusing us on our home and our sovereignty. And what tends to happen is when we start to implement that into a county or a city or county level, we start to run into rabbit holes and blockades, and we often run into politics that stops us. But if we really think about it, and everything that the left is doing, and to your point, Todd, even though it is decentralized in a way, they have a singular focus of corrupting the children. And if we take that away, we disempower them at a spiritual and physical level. So Operation Vineyard was put on my heart to stand up, and what this is based on is 5 critical pillars which build on the foundation of county by county. And this is what we're rolling out right now. And this is where the collective community that's being built now steps in more deeply together. To begin with, where we have to set up what I would call a human terrain cell, which is mapping out the political and human terrain. That is the interconnectivities of what people do in our government, in our public environment, in our funded, even in our corporations. But effectively, what we're doing in this is we're turning the surveillance state on its head. This is a country of we the people. So the idea of these mapping cells, if you will, is to surveil the surveillance state. So we start to take the power back. And that gives empowerment to the community in a responsible way so that we truly understand the nuances of what's going on. Simple example, in our county, they received a whole ton of money. All of a sudden, we've got all this housing being built out on the east side of town. No one will explain why that's happening. This type of thing is what I'm talking about, is now you just have to dig in and open this up and surveil the surveillance state. The next thing is a communication cell. So all of this is rolling out aggressively in August and into our next Bards Fest, where we establish at every county at least one podcaster that will focus on county level issues and work in conjunction with these we'll call them loosely information cells that are building up information. But the idea too is to zero in on the old issues around children. So it's not the monolithic view, but I guarantee all roads lead there one way or another. And then the third element is to start building safe havens for children. And that has already started. We have a Bards Nation school for children that was been brought into our orbit just 12 miles from our ranch up here in Douglas County. And we have there's other counties that are starting to do the same thing. We've had probably 3 or 4 Bards Nation people step up this last week and say, I'm building a safe haven for a child in different counties around the country. Again, it's just self-empowerment thing, people hearing the call and stepping up to that. The last 2 parts of this, which tie in extremely well to this, but are important in resetting the whole movement, is that as we remain county focused, then this combination of information and intelligence is what we're effectively doing there is we're setting up, it's just been a great model. So those are the types of ranges of things we talk about when we talk about food sovereignty. And then we get into what we call right work. That's pillar number 4. Right work is literally breaking from the yoke of the corporate and the government bonds of employment and using your gifts and talents to start your own business. Our country is centered on the small business owner and the independent operations. And we started this in 2020, and I could see this freight train coming at us like you did, Mike. that if people didn't start taking control of their lives, they were going to be captured by this tyranny that we're in right now. And then there'd be no way out. So between debt and a corporate job, they were going to strangle you to death. So we've really encouraged that. And in the process, we've seen an amazing amount of grassroots talent crop up. I've been doing some small investments in businesses around the country as we do that to help people get up on their feet and to start, whether it's pottery, whether it's sewing, whether it's screen printing, just these sorts of small businesses, and people can start working in and then working with local other organizations to start building the business and start connecting through our community, which we refer to collectively as Bards Nation.
I love this point because it reinvigorates the skill set of the local community instead of everything being manufactured overseas somewhere and people just collecting a universal basic income to be just, frankly, just, sedentary consumers. People are actually doing things, making things, and that makes you resilient against collapse, right?
Well, absolutely. And when we start to discover the talent in our community, it's quite amazing. We have somebody here in our community. She's one of my mods, and I knew she sewed, but I didn't learn till about 3 weeks ago that in one of the TV series, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's the one with Jesus. They have a TV series that goes on. She's been making all of the clothes for the support actors.
Really?
So this is an amazing talent, right? That we're sitting there, and she and her daughter run a business. And I brought up this the other night, and we're starting a new feature actually on the podcast. I'm a little bit delayed, but we're going to have it going by the end of the month as part of our web rebuild. But every week or every couple weeks, whatever it takes, I'm giving the show on Friday night about 15 minutes in about 4 segments of 15 minutes to small businesses. So people that are going to talk about their passions, be able to talk about where we can find them. We're adding an interactive map onto the website so people can get on there and click, do a search on the map, find out what's available, and be able to geographically locate it so that they can get hold of them, see their websites. If they're local, support them. If there's mail order, they can support that. We have one woman right now, it's MB Night Baker, and she just had a passion to start making amazing pastries. We ordered all of those pastries for our Bards Fest. She does mail order, and it's just, and which her big feature is that she will also take any family recipe you have and she'll make it and she'll turn it in, so she's reinvigorating the heritage of our own histories and what's special in the family. So I love the inspiration. And I think what happens is when we start talking about right work, people start to realize that there's just so much that they can do. And there's so many things that we've been told we can't do. And there's so much need. Just when we talk about Target, for example, and this ridiculous go woke, stupid stuff they're doing on the floor. And the first thing I asked in the community was, why aren't people making kids' clothes? And instantly we had 6 or 7 seamstresses that stood up and said, I'll start making clothes. So we're working with that to make people aware of where they can get children's clothes that are done by like really good people. So
right. That's perfect.
Right.
Okay. So that's point number 5, right?
Yeah. So that was 4 actually.
Oh, that was 4. Okay.
Point number 5 is health and wellness. So health and wellness is built out of the COVID con, and it's literally built on all of the things that we can do for ourselves and continue to explore to build our body health. So that's what we can grow in the garden, what products are available that are actually natural, what cures and sets are there within a limited basis within pharmacia. And I look at one of those as being that's Dr. Lee Merritt's protocols for anti-parasites, which I refer to regularly. And then, but looking at transitioning that as well to anti-parasitic to everything natural, everything that we can grow, do by our diet, do by our exercise, do by our sleep, and then adding to that some measure of trauma care knowledge, which we're working on a program coming up later this fall to have medical training videos by Special Forces 18 Delta medics.
Oh, I love that.
Teach, right? Yeah. So we're trying to empower the individual down to the home. This is all the central point to this. The last 2, one is informed action, which I'm really big on in not only staying engaged in learning, but building a knowledge library, which I think is absolutely important. Everybody should have that's not digital. That means a paper library. So I've spent a lot of time and money building out a pretty extensive library, everything from the resources we need to raise cattle, de-homesteading, to many other things that we may not need, but it's also preserving that talent and then continuing every chance you get to add to your skills and talents as we go along.
Perfect.
And then the final part of that is it's stewardship and conservation. So with that comes, the idea of what we have to use efficiently. Don't be wasteful. Be regenerative in the way that we function in our homes, in our small spaces, and the regenerative in thinking. And that also leads us to a frugalness and a use of resources to create an alternative currency or way of barter and commerce. So that's kind of the foundations on which we've been working on it.
Okay, excellent. 7 powerful pillars. I want to just mention your website again, BardsFM.com. And you also have a Bards Fest event I see coming up September 20 through the 23rd in Fredonia, Kansas. Is that the right way to say the name of that town?
It's actually translates to free men, I'm told. So that
free men.
wow.
Oh, wow. Like freedom, Nia. Okay, cool. So Bards Fest, September 20th through 23rd. Todd, you want to go to the Bards Fest?
You know what? My dad passed, but my mom lives in Goodland, Kansas. So I'm going to find out how far away that is from.
Cool.
What is the name of the town again? I just
Fredonia.
Fredonia.
Or Fredonia. Maybe just one
Fredonia.
E, though.
I got it. I'm going to investigate. I just might do that. Seriously.
It's going to be a great event, Mike. We're going to really focus on this particular event. We're really focusing more down on some granular skills. Well, what we're doing right now is we're also expanding in the informed action part, the concept of common law. And so there's just some people to check out on the website, as we will have ongoing classes and instruction. We're using Jaron Jackson, who is a West Point graduate and has literally become one of the most articulate people I've ever come across on common law and how to implement it in our lives.
Oh, wow.
I listened to that podcast yesterday. It was astonishing. I mean, I just didn't want it to stop. And now I know that he's going to be teaching this course or whatever. So yeah, you're bringing amazing content to the people.
Oh, I'll tell you, Scott Kesterson attracts the best of the best. It's really, Scott, whether your intention is this or not, you are a very profound leader because you bring such talented people together. That's your skill.
Well, I really appreciate it. And that's very humbling. And I appreciate that. I'm very proud how we've been working this, not as a central head model. I mean, I share things and I share ideas. Mm-hmm. And what you find out about this community, which is really the essence, I think, of taking back our nation, is that people just get engaged. And I have so much compliment to make for the whole community of Bards Nation. And I think when people encounter them, they find something very different because they don't just listen to podcasts or follow political trends. They get their hands dirty. So they
put an oar in the water and they start rowing, right?
Right. And that's just it. And they're leading. And so right now we're really in the process of developing leadership in the community level and encouraging that leadership. And we're going to be doing a lot of things in that direction now, which we'll talk about in a moment, Mike, but just like kind of our next thing, which we call Operation Vineyard. I want to get into that before we go out today.
I do. Yeah.
It's again, another aspect of this decentralized model. But I just need to capstone what we talked about here with the county by county. Those are 7 pillars that anybody can do. It doesn't take massive resources. You're not going to have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, buying special food or getting special equipment. This is about a new type of militia. And this is how I'm calling it. With this is the empowerment is a reestablishment of the established Second Amendment militias. But one thing that we don't have, which this is doing in conjunction, is to stand up what I call a First Amendment militia. This is offensive warfare in the information space, to be able to protect our counties with information and to send out the counter narratives to disrupt the deep state and their corrupted methods. And then the final point of that
wait, real quick, let me interrupt because this, again, you were on the other side of that in Afghanistan. You know how information packages are shaped and how narratives are pushed and how spells are cast over populations, right?
Yes. So I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of this is breaking that spell casting and that they do. I don't think people realize, I'm glad you said that, because I don't think people realize how much of what they do is literally spell casting.
Oh, it is. I was doing a whole podcast on this, and that you and I, what we do here on this show, Todd, but you, Scott, I mean, we are spell breakers. That's what we do. We break the spells for people so they can see the world for what it is.
Absolutely. I think that's just it. We're trying to rip the veils from their eyes and have them see clearly into a world of what it really represents.
That's right.
And that's so much of this is we've done a really good job in the information space on a national level to raise up a stronger voice. But what we don't truly have now is I'll call it a decentralized and yet networked, because it's a dual model. It's a decentralized information cell. We're not monitoring what every single podcast is doing nationally, but we have the network that when we need to push information or raise a local story, we have the network connected enough that we can do that. But if all of those nodes were ruptured, it doesn't change the function of the individual cell, if that makes sense.
Well, right. So, and you and I had a private conversation, about this, and I recommended Cordal. And Todd, you'll love this, because then Scott picked up on Cordal right away and realized it. It's private, distributed, peer-to-peer messaging platform, content distribution platform. We're announcing Brighteon on Cordal. Probably by the time people see this, it's already done. In fact, I'm sure it is, because I saw it done last night. But Scott, Cordal or technologies like that are perfect for your use, because it's node-based, no central servers, nothing can be seized or shut down, and allows all the members of your group to freely communicate about the local issues that matter for the safety and protection of their own children.
Well, Mike, that was such an inspiring call. And I just really want to highlight that. And I really want to underline this is, as far as a person that understands decentralized technology, I don't think there's anybody in the world right now that has a handle on it better than you. Oh. And so I really lean into that, and I appreciate the friendship we have to be able to do that. Because when you inspired me to look at Cordal, I knew of a guy that's in our network that is doing DoD type data processing, and he's very engaged in the decentralized place. So I reached out to him, and he took the initiative, and he's already raised himself up as a level 1, has been working to get our websites very soon moved over to Cordal. So nice. 100 behind this. I mean, we're moving very on this. Beautiful. And I totally see what you're doing.
See, that's what we're talking about, Todd, real use applications of this kind of decentralized technology. And I should also mention that in that call, Scott, and this is going to be a surprise to Todd, but surprise, Todd, we have been invited to be advisors to the BardsFM project, the crypto advisors and crypto privacy advisors. So are you up for that, Todd?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me too.
We love use cases. Yes. And we love educating people on how to not make the bad mistakes, because when you are in crypto, you are your own bank. And so there are ways of being able to protect yourself and your money and your audience and your community. So very excited and accepted.
We have a perfect use case here with the BardsFM communities that are sprouting and growing all over, not just the country, but ultimately the world. And they need a system, a means of exchange that in fact has privacy as one of the immutable properties. Well, guess what? That's what this show is all about. So Scott, you are in good hands. You just reach out anytime you want. We'll help you solve this dilemma.
Well, Todd and Mike, thank you very much, because that's probably been the biggest obstacle for anybody, and we really want to model a solution. I know, Mike, you had mentioned Monero, which I've done some research into, and as a privacy coin, I'm in no way a crypto expert by any means, but I can see the potential of how we can use this. And I think you and I even talked about the idea of being able to use a crypto exchange into a barter system, which is basically giving value to products that then are able to be translated into some sort of crypto. So I think there's a lot of potential.
There's also, and Todd can confirm this, but we've already interviewed guests whose projects support the creation of your own branded tokens on top of their decentralized private-based crypto systems. So you could actually conceivably There's one project in particular I'm thinking about, Todd, that is going to roll this out with Atlantis Spark coming up, I think probably early 2024. But Scott, you could create the Bards FM token that is used and recognized as the barter means of exchange throughout your communities. That would be a relatively simple thing to do, and it would be powered by the existing infrastructure of that particular coin and all of its nodes and all of its miners and so on. So you don't have to build that infrastructure. It already exists.
I'm all in on this, Mike. So I really want to make this move forward, because we're at a real critical point now where we have enough going, and then we can start making this work pretty quickly. And even if it's just selected use cases, we can actually get it starting to be embraced, because people are very concerned about the CBDC. The Fed now being rolling out, I guess, yesterday, and what this is going to mean for our own sovereignty money, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's going to mean that we're slaves to the CBDC system. As you know, you've covered this, but people are going to be completely enslaved if they just sit back and do nothing and just follow the easy path that's laid out for them. They will end up with nothing.
And unfortunately, that's going to happen to a lot of people, because even if they don't want to, they just don't see the avenue as a choice. And I think the biggest thing which you're doing and what we're trying to do is we're trying to create some very attainable pathways towards sovereignty and freedom. And this is where, when I try to talk about these things, people often talk about, a lot of various problems that come up with, what do I do about my mortgage? What do I do about this? I don't have all those answers, but I know that we keep bringing in people to provide avenues out. So, and just want to, that'll just kind of close out with that comment where I want to add on to the last point of Operation Vineyard, which is the fifth pillar of that, and that's common law. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't know a lot about common law 3 weeks ago. And as I have watched, listened, learned, started doing the study on it, it is absolutely stunning how powerful this is. Literally, even being able to change the nature of your mortgage or your title on your home to where you control the sovereignty of your home and not become a tenant of the state. These are all common law filings, and it's powerful. It's very different than looking at things like land patents or state nationals.
Right.
All of these things, common law gives us all of that. And then it also gives us sovereignty over our own exchange and our own right to own property. So just to highlight a case law that just came through, in fact, and it was February 2023 that it was argued in the Third Circuit, and the Third Circuit agreed. And the question was, can a felon own a gun? And of course, BATF says, no, absolutely not. And the common law argument won, saying that you cannot deny a man the right to own property. And in doing so, the court agreed that as long as he uses the gun appropriately, he has no restraint on him owning a firearm. That's an incredible destruction of BATF authority, and it's equally all centered on common law, which is the individual sovereign.
Huge win.
Well, we cheer any destruction of BATF authority on this show, as I'm still wondering what to do with my several arm braces, by the way, that I've removed from AR pistols. And then there's the 80% lowers too. It's quite a long list that the ATF doesn't want us to have. But that's a really great point there, Scott. They don't want us to own property, but the same thing's true with money. And I'm going to bring in Todd on this. So when you hold crypto, you have custody. It's in your control. No one can stop you from using it. No one can debank you like they did to Nigel Farage, right? Because they didn't like his politics. But when you have money in a bank, it's never yours. They can control it, they can freeze it, they can seize it, they can tax it, they can take it, they can confiscate it, right? So that's not even really money then, is it? If you don't control it, how can you call it money? So crypto is, well, plus probably locally like gold and silver, right? So precious metals have a role in this. But in terms of easy exchange in your communities, Scott, crypto is perfect because of the divisibility. You can divide it into 0.00000 whatever. It's the perfect thing. Todd, what you want to add to that in terms of the role of privacy crypto in promoting freedom at the local level?
Yeah, I wanted to designate that crypto, there are 23,000 assets, and there are just a handful of really good privacy coins. So we have to start there. Ultimately, when people get into the grandfather of them all, Bitcoin, they're thinking that it's anonymous, but it's not. There's a company that makes $20 billion a year surveilling the blockchain of Bitcoin. It's huge business. And then they sell that information to anybody who can fog a mirror and will pay. And so what we teach is that we want to help everyone pivot. You can use Bitcoin or other coins as a gateway drug, if you will, into private crypto. But ultimately, you need to be holding private crypto. And because there are just about a half a dozen of these that I think have real promise, I don't think it's going to be difficult for us to move the needle on some of these. Not from a price standpoint, I'm talking from a utility standpoint, so that we can start socializing them into communities to where we all agree that this is a means of exchange. Because, you know, at one point in time, seashells were a medium of exchange, right? Tally sticks. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and let me add, Scott, are you still there? Can you come back on?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I just want to get the software to change back to you. Because Scott, I want to mention this. This is really critical. And Todd made a really important point. So in your community, if people use Bitcoin to send coins to each other, then every person's device has a record of where they sent it to, the wallet ID. And if those devices are confiscated, then it means that members of your community could be used as witnesses against other members of the community because of their mobile devices having transaction logs of sends and receives. And you don't have to be doing anything illegal, right? You could just be purchasing raw milk, for example, right? Or chicken eggs or garden seeds or whatever. So the privacy coins, and Todd was exactly right, there aren't that many. We're looking at all of them that are viable here on the show. Privacy coins have no transactional logs of wallet IDs of who you sent to, who you received from, wallet balances, or transfer amounts. None of that can be determined. So even if members of that community who, let's say, engaged in the purchase of raw milk, and then some crazy county in California that likes to lock people up for buying and selling raw milk, they try to seize everybody's cell phones and look for the records. Those records don't exist because of the privacy features. They never existed. And that is necessary to protect freedom as well.
I fully agree. I think that one of the challenges, and I say this, and we have to kind of look back to the colonial period and realize that we're in a very similar place, and we're having to create an alternate economy, an alternate government. That's where I go to common law. And the only way to really manage this, ultimately, like we're talking about, is at a local county level. And it doesn't mean your county is going to be at 100%, not initially. But I will guarantee that as this system rolls in, if you can build an architecture locally where a small group of people can come together and trade and buy, sell, and do those things, it's going to grow massively. And if it has a local root and anchor, meaning you're not dependent on outside, but it can network outside, then you're going to be resilient beyond imagination.
Exactly.
And I really
love that vision.
I think what's important is we start to look at our counties differently. And this is where I think what we tend to do is we forget that every county has the potential to absolutely be self-reliant. But the question is, you have to think differently per county. So one of the big ones right now is fuel. And there's all sorts of, and so just some of the things that we forget. You can use methane, a methane capture system easily. Like I have tons of cow manure up here. We can turn a methane capture system in and start creating methane to use as burner and to get enough to burn and cook our stuff. There's also gasifiers, which obviously that's technology is out there and you can build it. But then we have to start looking at other things like, in Oregon and in every 50 states now, it's legal to grow industrial hemp. Hemp is one of those things that provides a fuel oil. So as we start to think differently in our counties, and using the resources that are there, we start to adapt ourselves to that. And then as we are rebuilding and we start to network county by county, we build a different type of support system that's not in their existing logistics, supply chain model, nothing. Everything is decentralized, resilient, and the counties themselves can stand alone. So I get, kind of coming full circle back to the crypto piece, Mike and Todd. I think what's really important here that the one thing that I'm looking at, and I'm not endorsing, I'm going to be very clear here, but the coin I've been studying is Monero for a very particular reason. One, for the privacy aspect, but also looking at the number of vendors, and they have a good list of them that are accepting Monero for goods. Digital's easy to use. Cryptocurrency is very easy to use on digital products. But when we start to do physical products, we're going to have to deal with the off-ramping and the translation of that currency to a vendor. So example, if I buy a t-shirt on my mail order, I'm going to have somebody deliver it. And those vendors may only accept dollars. So I still have to pay for shipping. So that's an option to solve in the short term, but it's an opportunity in the long term, in the medium term, to build an alternate transportation system. I mean, why not do this thing of an Uber style logistics supply chain where people going in a certain direction agree to take a product from point A to point B?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's sort of is all can be done. And once we build that resilience, there's no stopping this. People take the country back.
And Monero is the right coin to look at in terms of privacy to start with, because it's the most liquid privacy coin. It's the largest. It's the most commonly accepted. But there are some others. And anyway, I know you'll learn about it on the show as we have, because we're interviewing some of the top leaders of various projects. So I just love the fact that, Scott, that you're willing to take what works, no matter what realm it comes from: food, gardening, blockchain technology, decentralized communications, the Cordal system, for example. You are putting together, using the best of the best that's available now to help protect and defend freedom and liberty. And I applaud you for it. I think what you're doing is amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. And I want to I just want to highlight that because you've been a pioneer here as well. And I'm just being very honest. It's just that we need to have that sort of adaptable model. And we continue to build. I guess if there's a single message I just want to get out to your audience, it's this: is you're empowered to do these things. The models are out here. You don't have to become a crypto expert. You have resources like Decentralized TV, what Mike does on his show, what Todd has available. All these things here, they're available. You can get a starter point. You don't have to become an expert in gardening. There's plenty of resources, but you have to start, and you've got to get your hands dirty. And each person that does that, I'm not a crypto guy. I didn't know much about ham radio a year ago. Now I'm licensed. I mean, we just have to continue to learn and grow, because the burdens on each of us are going to be immense. But the reward is that we're leading so many out of that hell that they're trying to put us in, and we're rebuilding the nation in the way our founding fathers intended.
Well said. Excellent. Todd, what are your thoughts here as we wrap this interview up?
Scott, two of my favorite words to put together are start ugly. So like with your ham radio, you weren't proficient. Now you're licensed. With growing food, with any of these things that you've shared, that from sewing to whatever. But the key is to just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. What do they say, that the enemy of progress is perfection? And
right.
Yeah. And we all go through that. We just are like a deer in headlights. But one thing that I have come to learn and love about Mike is that he just dives in, starts swimming, and just starts. That's the biggest thing that we can all do here. There is something in your 7 pillars. I believe with all my heart that no matter who is watching right now, it's going to appeal to their heart. And when it does, it's going to unpack something. So they would go to BardsFM.com to join the movement, the community. Tell us about that. How would they get involved?
So here's right now, we're right in the process of building that community place. So let me just explain. Right now, we have a live stream that goes on Podbean 3 times a day. And that's a way to connect. We also are on Telegram in the Bards FM family room. You can find us there. There's a lot of great, it's actually an amazing, the way I describe the Bards FM family room is you will get every topic from literally space aliens to gardening to the richness in faith, but everybody is working on the presence of building kingdom here on earth, no matter where you are. Highly respective community, loving community that just is about sharing. So we have that.
I love it. What about gardening with space aliens?
I'm sure that's coming, Mike. I have not, know exactly who I could feed that to, and I'd probably get an answer in the day.
We'll call that the Venus Food Forest Project right there, something like that. Martian food forest, Martian permaculture. How about that?
That's perfect. That's right in what Elon Musk wants to do. With
exactly. Yeah, we got to save water on Mars, otherwise.
And wasn't it 33 rockets he has on that thing? It's kind of an interesting number, but anyway.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Scott, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, not at all. So the Bards FM site right now is more just a site to get information, and this is why I'm highlighting this. We're in the process of changing that to Bards Nation. If you use the bardsfm.com, you'll still go there. And that's going to go live within the next 45 days. And on there, and this is why I highlight it now, and that'll be the end of August. So wherever this airs, just understand about the end of August, we're rolling out the Bards Nation website, which will have a community forum. We're also going to have a barter and exchange spot on there. We're going to have an ability for people to connect and to talk and connect locally. So all of that is happening right now as we're building it, so that we can build an interactive community, more interactive community, and give people the physical aspect of trying now to work through. And this is a big one here. We're encouraging the idea of always solving solutions. So one of those things, like we say, is currency. But that's why I want to open up to a swap area where people can trade things. And doing that, leads to solutions that we may not see. Right now, we're trying to find solutions, and I'm with you 100%, Mike. Jump in, go. But I also feel very strongly in crowdsourcing a lot of that in just the practical common American to see what they come up with. Because I guarantee you, I've seen this all the time, and I'm just going to give one highlight story. I have a following group up in Ohio, in a county up there, and I got a call, and I called in one night to their meeting. And this is a person who is a business leader, substantial, and he's like, I love the county by county. This is what's going to happen in our county. In the next 2 years, we are going to be 100% efficient and self-sufficient on every single thing we need, and we're doing it in our county borders. Wow. That type of thinking is what this should inspire.
Oh, yeah.
And it comes to innovation like we can't do as individuals or singletons, but we can inspire that thinking. So even like if you're uncomfortable with crypto, I get it, no problem. This is what we are trying to solve, is exchange issues. So with this, it inspires others. And I think the last part of that is don't be limited by what these trolls and these psychopaths are trying to tell us. They're trying to tell you you can't do something. I'm going to tell you this, you can, and you're not limited. Just get your hands dirty and go.
Scott, can I offer a quote?
Absolutely.
It's time to think in cans, not can'ts.
Wonderful.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm an American, not an Americant. So
that's perfect, Mike.
Yeah, we definitely, we're all on the same page on that. So this is pretty amazing. Look, I would just say, Scott, what you are building is perfect for having your own token on a blockchain. In fact, since this isn't going to air for a couple of weeks, I'll just tell you straight out, you should go out and register like bardcoin.com and bardscoin and bardcoins. I don't know, something like that, because BARD, doesn't that sound like a great coin for the community, Todd? Just be like Bardcoin.
Just BARD.
Yeah, BARD.
I mean, yeah, because
and then the swapping can turn into buying and selling for the Bard coin, knowing that the Bard coin can be used within the community to buy and sell other things, but also maybe the Bard coin could be recognized to buy tickets at the Bards Fest, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Or for delivery services or whatever. It becomes the currency, and it doesn't have to be limited to one county because it's digital. That, Scott, as this model spreads from county to county, the Bard coins are, universal and borderless.
It's going to make a bunch of people very happy who have been asking for that. So that's good.
We would love to help you make it happen.
Yes,
absolutely.
And Mike, as his advisor, what we need to do is organize a call with who from where.
Yeah, we do need to do that.
Who can do this? And I think it would be a great use case because you have such an amazing community, lots of people. That would be the perfect one for this specific blockchain to embrace as their initial use case.
I completely agree. We know exactly who to call. And that blockchain is pretty good size. It's got a lot of nodes. It's got a lot of volume. And this is a technical issue, Scott, but it matters. The anonymity of your token, let's call it the Bards coin, if that's what it ends up being, the anonymity of the Bards coin would have an anonymity set that's mixed in with all the other transactions of the underlying coin of that existing ecosystem, meaning that the anonymity protections of your members are so huge that nobody could just monitor your tokens transactions, even though it's a smaller set. Nobody could just monitor that and then reverse engineer what you're doing with it. So privacy would be global.
So just to be clear, I'll take care of this actually right after the call. I should register, like, for example, as I should register the URL, what you're saying, Bards.
Yeah, you should register the URLs, and maybe probably bards.io or bard.io, I would, or both of those. I would do everything both singular and plural. Yeah, just register the domain names. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I've got to just add to it. That's great. Thanks, Mike.
I would also do, so is it Bards or Bard?
We typically use Bard. It is Bard, B-A-R-D-S. Bards.
Okay.
Bards, plural.
So I would do bardscoin.com.io. I would do bardscash.com.io. I would do Bards Money. So, anything that you think could be associated, what you're trying to do is make sure somebody doesn't swoop in and hijack you, because there's a lot of scumbags in crypto and they'll try to impersonate you. So you just kind of want to protect that name so nobody can come play any games.
Yeah, we have a very strong anti-scumbag policy on the show here.
It's in our code of ethics.
Yeah, we are spell breakers and scumbag ass kickers is what we do here. But no, this could be a really great use case, and it's actually perfect, and it doesn't even, it doesn't have to be speculative in any way, just utility, just showing that people can have a common means of divisible exchange within a set community that would make the whole barter thing obviously so much easier in the same sense as in history. Coins made barter easier. I mean, coins and commerce, right? Much easier to have a common method of value. In any case, we're your volunteers, Scott. So we'd love to do it. In fact, we'd like to document it on this show.
Yes.
I think that'd be fantastic. I think they would be, I'm all about this, because ultimately what we're doing then is giving inspiration to others.
Yes.
I think this, someone wrote me a while back, and someone you and I both know, but I'll leave it out for sake of sensitivity. But when I started bringing out the county by county model, which was 2020, the comment was, well, you need to copyright this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to copyright this, because I have interest in holding this. This is how we work together to build sovereignty. And so it's a structure that it's just a framework is all it is.
Yeah.
And how it goes out is how the individual, like to your point, Todd, I mean, how people get their hands dirty and inspire. This is how we get this back. And we have to stop thinking in terms of centralized systems. I mean, I don't think people realize how
that's breaking the spell.
Yeah, it is.
Right exactly. And by the way, Scott, we just interviewed another expert, a crypto tax expert earlier today. That hasn't run yet, but according to that expert, if members of your community are buying and selling with each other in, let's say, Bards coin, since Bards coin is not recognized as currency by the United States government, and you can't use Bards coin to pay taxes, it's just considered property, like a commodity. So when people are buying and selling with each other using Bards coin, they have no reportable taxable gains under current U.S. law, as I understand it.
I'm going to add another layer to that, Mike, because I just learned this in common law. So if you're running as a PMA and you do everything related to a membership issue, then you are not conducting commerce at all.
Even better.
In private. Right.
Your private membership and everything you do related to membership. So you can say special events, you can say, membership, short-term membership renewal. And you're all legal, and this is just you are functioning everything within a membership.
Yes,
and nothing is doing commerce. So we take that, add the coin to that, And now you're completely out of the circle of what they can claim you're doing in terms of interstate commerce.
And we'll also teach you.
Great.
We'll also teach you about boating accidents, right, Mike?
No, we don't need boating accidents.
Okay,
there's no need. I mean, it's all.
That's true. That's true.
It's all right there in black and white. You know, like Scott says, the PMA provides a legal framework.
It does.
And again, the fact that these coins and tokens are not recognized as legal tender means that even the government can't treat them like cash or dollars. But anyway,
that's correct.
We do have a disclaimer for those watching. Of course, don't consider this to be legal or financial advice. We are not, licensed by the state as advisors. Obviously, they would never license us because we would give them the finger on their licenses, probably. But the point is, do your own research and do what's right for you, but know your options. And Scott, I want to thank you for everything that you brought here today. We do need to wrap up this segment, but it's been amazing, super eye-opening. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me, Todd. Nice to meet you, and just really look forward to working with you both as we hopefully will set up an inspiring use case, especially with the currency issues. So
yeah,
thank you, and God bless you.
Indeed.
God bless you too. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Scott. Bye-bye. Well, you can go ahead and disconnect, and we'll talk later about what we can do to help your organization get some questions answered. And then we're going to return here on the show with Todd Pittner and myself with our reaction and discussion following this fascinating interview with Scott Kesterson from BardsFM.com, and also check out his Bards Fest event coming up in Fredonia, Kansas, September 20th through the 23rd. We'll be right back after this break. Join the official discussion channel for this show on Telegram at t.me/decentralized TV, where you can ask questions or offer suggestions of who we should interview next. Also be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter on decentralized.tv, where you'll be alerted about 1 day in advance of each new upcoming episode, before it gets published. On decentralized.tv, you'll also find links to our video channels and social media channels across all platforms, including Brighteon, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, Truth Social, and more. Check it all out at decentralized.tv. All right, welcome back, folks, to Decentralized TV. And I've got Todd Pittner here, my co-host, of course. And this is our discussion and reaction to the interview with Bards FM founder Scott Kesterson. So can I say just right from the start here, Todd, just wow, I feel honored to know this man, and to have him on the show is just a huge win. I love it.
A huge win. I mean, as I shared, I've been binge listening to Bards FM, and his content is just amazing. He has this unconscious competence when he speaks, and his county by county that he presented with his 7 pillars. You and I were joking before we came back on here about how interviewing a gentleman like him and others, the earlier one we did today, it was like, this doesn't even feel like work. But then I zoned into his 4th pillar, which is what? It's right work, which means you and I are doing something right. We're working where we should be, not where we have to be, which it feels really good. Yeah, and exactly. And to be part of this process that he is pioneering, he and the people around him, I know he alone doesn't want to be given all the credit. It's a group effort, of course. It's and it's a God-inspired effort. But clearly, he's the key organizer of making this happen. And if we can work with him through this show to help innovate this model of private cryptocurrency application in a local community barter, local commerce, local, system, then that can be a model that other people can take and borrow and open source that thing and just use it in other places. And imagine how many people we could help with these concepts of freedom. People are like, oh, I don't know what to do. We can't create our own money. Actually, you can create your own system of value. Not that difficult. And can you imagine, Mike, it's like, one of my favorite lines always, I use a lot, is 1 + 1 = 11. Well, 1 + 1 + 1 = 111, not 3. when you're talking about God inspired and decentralized entrepreneurship. It's just like, imagine, I was sitting here thinking, he was like, yeah, but one of the speed bumps is the fact that we can trade in crypto, but there's going to be some people who are going to be able to off ramp it into cash or whatever. And you know what came to mind? I didn't say anything, but I thought I'll save it. But Basam, right? And Change Now, and the way that they're set up to where we get Bards coin integrated with Change Now. Then if somebody needs to be able to, they'll accept the Bards coin, but they can off ramp it to cash if they want. Problem solved.
Well,
so I think
potentially, but I mean, that's a great point. I was also thinking though that Bards coin could work as a closed system where
yes, it could.
Where you don't even need mining, for example. You just have a set number of coins that exist, period. To start with, and that's what circulates, and that's what people use to exchange value with each other. And you really can't sell them for cash, but you can use them in all kinds of other ways. So it's going to be kind of cool, Todd. We could probably present some options to Scott and his community, let them decide what's best for them, and then we could advise on what we think might be the best solutions for that tech.
And I loved your suggestion to be able to document this. So I don't know what you meant by that, but I envision, we're going to have some preliminary discussions with the founder of the project that and I know, that we're going to have to present this to him.
Yes.
I think he'll be extremely excited about this being a very viable use case, but I'd love to be able to record that, right? That discussion.
Good point. We should do that.
Just document this all the way, because I think we're creating our future. I think we are creating our financial future somehow, some way.
What if we had a recorded meeting? We get Scott and the guy we know on the same call, the four of us, and actually just have a meeting about it, but share it with the public.
I think that would be fascinating.
I think so too.
I think that would make for good TV, good decentralized TV.
That would be really interesting. Or maybe, September 20th. Well, we know where Scott's going to be in Kansas. And we know you have family in Kansas. Maybe we get some of us in the same room or something. We'll see if we can make that happen. And, and maybe have a recorded conversation. But we'll figure out how to make this happen.
Yeah. But it's so exciting, man. It's just like, you're right. This doesn't feel like work, Mike.
I know. And it's the underlying, the pattern in all of this, or the common thread. Think about the interviews that we've done today.
Yeah.
The freedom solutions that we need are right there.
Yes.
It's not like you have to go on a quest to find freedom. It's in a sense, the tools exist right now to do it, but you just have to know what those are. And most people don't. And people are kept in the dark on purpose to where they never know. It's like being in a jail cell and the key is right there on the wall, but it's hidden. And unless you know it's there, you don't know. You can just open it up and walk out.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And sometimes you see that key, Mike, and it's not hidden. But sometimes people live in fear and they just are like, no, I can't go over and pick up that key and release myself from this spell.
Yeah, because there might be I might get yelled at. Fact check next to the key. The fact check says this key doesn't open anything. Fact checker.
A fat checker.
Right.
Telling you.
Right. This key doesn't open anything. Or if you touch this key, you will receive an electric shock. And people will go, oh, I shouldn't touch that key. The authorities said it might give me an electric shock. So they don't want to touch it. They don't want to mess with it.
Or just if you use this key to get out of here, you could be in trouble. Meanwhile, you're in a jail cell.
Right. No, it's amazing.
In our own prisons.
How there's so much fear that's weaponized out there to prevent people from simply discovering the freedom that God meant us all to be born with.
Yeah.
And to
claiming
express
your rights.
That's right.
We have our rights, and it would probably be good if we started thinking about those rights and not thinking about them as wrongs.
Most human beings have consented to be slaves. Isn't that wild?
Oh yeah. It was somebody circulated this TikTok video, Mike, that it was this guy that was just basically preaching, saying, you know, this world changes. All we have to do is not engage in the system. It's up to us. We just need to not engage. And I wrote back and I said, yeah, that sounds great, preacher, but there, I think, were 7 billion people that engaged in wearing masks, and those are the same people that are going to just bend over with getting out of the system. It's like they are self-ordained slaves.
It's incredible. I mean, I've interviewed guests before. This is going to sound a little wild, but I've interviewed guests who say, and you can make of this what you will, but these guests say that the indigenous human race was engineered as a slave race by extraterrestrials, right? So, I mean, and the only reason I bring that up is because you look around and you're like, why are all these people agreeing to be slaves? You know, like, are they engineered that way or something? What's going on?
Right.
But again, we are spell breakers here. That's what we do. We break the spells.
Yes.
We are like bulletproof against the sorcerers.
And you know what the other thing is, Mike? You know this. I put myself through college as a magician, and throughout my entire career, I would always have a dozen magic tricks on my person where I called it the Houdini's dozen. I could entertain a table. And so I'm also a practicing magician. And so I know the secrets. I really do know that magic isn't real in a sense. You know, there's a way that you can make somebody believe something, and they'll believe it. I mean, they'll absolutely believe it. They'll be astonished.
That's funny.
Art of astonishment. And that's what's happening out there is people don't realize that they just turn on the TV and the spells are cast.
Yes.
And they're just the victim of magic TV. There's nothing real to it.
It is. It's all pure sorcery, and all, but also the food supply is in essence spell casting with the artificial colors, artificial flavors, trying to make artificial food seem real. But you know, you don't know this about me, Todd, but it's fascinating that you and I both share that common history, because when I was in college, I studied sleight of hand card magic.
Wow,
in college, and I was actually hired by a group to come perform at a couple of magic shows, and then I ended up, and this is sleight of hand. It's not like card counting tricks, you know, number tricks. As you know, it's actual sleight of hand. And there's this one trick that I can still perform to this day, where you know, a person picks a card, puts it back in the deck, and then I take 4 cards off the top. I show them each of the 4 cards, put them on a table, and none of those 4 cards are their card. And then I have them touch a card, and then that's their card.
That's great.
People flip out, as you know, right? People flip out. They're like, reality has been twisted, you know?
Right.
But it's just sleight of hand. There's a logical, rational explanation for why it looks like that.
Yes.
But it's not. It's a mechanical trick.
And that's why you know this because you studied, but sometimes I'd see a magic effect growing up, especially, and I'd save my allowance. I'd mow lawns, so my dad would take me to Wizard's Magic Shop in Boulder, Colorado, to be able to buy that.
Buy the trick,
and then I get it home and I learn how it's done, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's like, that's stupid. That's just so stupid. Right?
Really? They're charging that much for this?
Right.
I knew that. No, well, no, you didn't know that, you know, but it's so funny. But, you know, talking about food, last night I had the installers come over for my food forest, and also had another guest come over who is going to be using foodforestabundance.com for his commercial properties. And he has been growing his own food for years. His name is Matthew Lyons. And he brought my wife and me 6 mangoes. And you know what I realized last night, Mike? I have been under a spell my whole entire life that the mangoes we've been buying from the store are the real mangoes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, big difference.
It was the best fruit I've ever had in my life. It was so good. And it was like the size
soft
of a
and juicy mangoes.
Oh, yeah.
And not these crazy hard cue ball mangoes at the store.
Yeah.
Right.
So Anyway, I digress. But man, oh man, Scott Kesterson, I am gonna just follow that man, and I don't mean by follow like
you're not stalking him, is what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that I'm going to listen to all of his podcasts. He's going to be one of my go-tos. I mean, I listen to you first thing in the morning, all of your podcasts.
Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that.
No, you're great.
But Scott is a revolutionary.
He really is.
He is.
Yeah.
He's a revolutionary figure in American history, even while he's living.
Yeah.
And
right.
What he sets in motion will have ripple effects throughout time.
It will. He's such, you were right. He's such a great leader. You know, he's very attractive. And I don't mean, well, from physical standpoint, he's attractive. I mean, I don't know if you're
Is this your gay moment for the show? Are you coming out?
No, I'm a fanboy of Bruce Arians. He was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the first thing when I saw Scott, I was like, wow, he kind of resembles Bruce Arians. But I didn't want to say it with him on the phone. He probably gets that a lot, though. But Bruce Arians is a handsome man, Scott.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's okay to say he's handsome. Again, I love his voice. That doesn't make me gay. Yeah. It's like, yeah, this guy's got a great voice. He should do, his broadcasts they're wonderful to listen to.
They are.
Not just the content, but I mean the delivery and so on. He's probably blushing if he hears this. He's going to be blushing. He's going to text me like, why are you doing this to me?
Well, it is going to be a blast working with him and his team and community and bringing this all to fruition. It's just like so motivating, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, this show is about real use cases. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we can find a better use case than this. I mean, talk about a pro-liberty community that wants to have its own resilient currency. And you know what else is cool about this? I meant to mention this when he was on, but when the dollar collapses, this community is going to be fine because they have all their skills. They have their food. They already have their commerce system up and running in advance. Yes. It doesn't matter. Dollar goes down. Okay. So what? We knew that was going to happen anyway.
Told you so.
Yeah. And as the dollar loses value, well, is the Bards coin's not going to just dump value because nobody's printing trillions of them.
Right.
It's like a fixed supply or whatever algorithm they decide on. That's it.
Man, I can't wait till our next steps. I do think we should head to Kansas,
Yeah, Kansas is a good state.
That would be a great trip. I think we would meet a ton of people, great people there.
Yeah, well, Oklahoma's got even more freedom than Kansas, though. So maybe get him to go south next time.
Yeah, get him to go south.
Come to Texas. Perfect. Scott, come to Texas. How about that?
come to your back 40.
There we go. Yeah, we could make that happen probably in the future. But anyway, I got to say, so Scott Kesterson nails it. Perfect guest for the show.
Yep.
And do you recall, Todd, how when we first started this show, and this seems silly now, but you remember the private conversations we were having? It was like, are we sure we're going to be able to find enough people to talk about decentralization?
I know. And we had a couple of guests that we invited on, that maybe in hindsight, I don't know, every guest has been fantastic, but they're coming out of the woodwork right now. And I mean, I'm talking very special guests.
Yeah, we have a lot of amazing guests coming up on, just upcoming episodes. And in fact, Todd, we have to film 2 days next week because of the big announcement with Cordal that we were referring to today. So that's going to be a show and tell type of thing where I'm going to be showing how it works on my laptop. I guess I need to install the Cordal node here, but think about this. We are building, remember the slogan for the show, Todd, right? We're building the infrastructure of human freedom.
Yes.
And how perfect is today's episode that speaks to that issue?
Infrastructure.
The infrastructure of human freedom.
And we know about the infrastructure of the future because of a guest we had on in the past.
Exactly.
Hasn't been released yet. Well, it has. If you're watching this show, you've seen it. But Ruben and Firo, I mean, just amazing. So we marry our guests, and
we marry our guests.
beautiful babies are going to have.
Okay, I'm not chasing that rabbit.
It's called
down the rabbit hole.
a bard's coin.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
a beautiful son.
Beautiful son. Well, look, I guess every guest that comes on, we learn something. And
Correct.
some guests that come on, like Scott Kesterson, we can contribute something to his community.
Right.
And then we can
Right.
transform that experience into lessons and how-to information for other people to take that model, run with it, use it,
Yes.
open source it, like we say.
Right.
And this is how the world actually gets changed, by the way. And do you realize how many people are going to almost panic watch these episodes when the bank freeze happens?
Right.
You're going to be like, what do I do now? And then they just start watching and learning as quickly as because they got to catch up.
Binge watching.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A day is coming when the panic will be so insane out of the dollar and out of the banks, but all the exits will be closed by that time.
I know.
The banks will have the bail-ins and the bank freezes and, oh, you can't withdraw any money. Sorry.
Yeah.
What I learned from one of our previous guests was that Brazil had an 18-month bank freeze back in the 1990s where they froze everybody's bank accounts for 18 months.
How could that be? I mean, think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine.
I guess that's one way to save.
Yeah,
Save your
right.
money.
Well, no, but then the currency became worthless in the meantime. So,
Right.
you were losing every day and freaking out like I can't get it out and it's losing.
Right. Right.
It's kind of like having
Yeah,
FTX tokens when Sam Bankman-Fried was.
Well, it's interesting. So last night we had the Food Forest guys come and my wife she's way more conservative than me. And so she's like, well, how much do we really want to invest in all of this? And I'm like, kind of all of it. But like all good preppers, I have a little bit of cash in the house, right? And I'm like, I want to get rid of that crap. So that's going to be the first go-to, to be able to pay for my Food Forest. And the thought of being able to use my crappy, deteriorating cash for permaculture that is going to be delivering me and my neighbors food for generations.
Seriously.
Hope. Wow. I mean, this is
turning something useless into something useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't have to pay for the chemicals to keep up with the Joneses with my green yard.
That's right. That's right. You can just pee on the plants whenever you feel like it.
Pee on the plants and
that's got nitrogen. Yeah, just pee on the plant, pee on the orchard. You're all good.
I'll be everybody's buddy. Hey, you want me to walk your dog? I need the
Does it pee on command? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even get my dog to pee on command. Okay, so something else, by the way, I want to mention that
yes.
In addition to us being advisors then to the Bards FM community, which I'm very honored to do, you have an advisory service that you are announcing on the show. And I'd like to just go ahead and share that with the audience because, I kind of asked you if you would be willing to do this, Todd, but a lot of people watching, they have questions, they need some help. And you're available kind of a private consultation by the hour, right?
Yeah. Private crypto consultant, you might say. A lot of people are hearing this and are listening and they're like, well, one of the things that I learned way back when is crypto is really hard, until it's not. I also know there are a lot of speed bumps and there's a lot of ways that you can lose your money. So I've been through the good, bad, and the ugly. And I want to be able to guide people on how to be able to exit fiat and get into private crypto specifically and do that safely. So yes, I have a service. I agree with you that I think there is a need. And that's the whole thing about this is if we can address a need of audience members of Decentralized TV, then we're going to figure out how to be able to serve it. So
how do people reach you on that?
They would reach me through Proton Mail because that's private. And it's real simple. It's just, I'm Todd. Like no apostrophe, but an M. So IMTODD at Proton Mail. So I'm Todd at Proton Mail. Pretty easy to remember.
Perfect.
You just can't put an apostrophe in there.
Okay.
That's kind of screwed up.
Right. Okay.
But thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, there are a lot of people watching this show who, it's interesting. You know, I tend to reach an audience that's pretty well off because they're successful in life. And many of them have worked for many decades, and many of them are retired, and they've got portfolios, they've got assets, and they want to, of course, protect them.
Right.
And they often, because of their age, they may not have kept up with crypto. You know, crypto tends to be people in their 20s and 30s, frankly, these days.
Yeah.
People who don't have money, by the way, tend to be involved in a lot of crypto overall, which is kind of funny. But I get questions from people who are retired and have money, like a lot, and they say, yeah, well, I've already bought so much gold and silver that I don't have any place to put it anymore. I mean, I'm thinking, man, that's a lot. But I understand silver can take up a lot of space, but if you've got cubic meters of gold, you're pretty well off. But nevertheless, then they say, so I need crypto, but I don't know what to buy or how to buy it or how to not get ripped off and this and that. So that's what you're going to be providing then, is some recommendations and pitfalls to avoid, not make mistakes along the way. It's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Keep everyone safe.
Very cool. Okay. And then also let me mention our sponsor for today. I remembered, Todd. You didn't have to remind me. Let's see if I have the website here. Where is it? The Satellite Phone Store provides, of course, satellite phones, as you might expect, and also satellite text messaging devices. There's these things right here called bivy sticks. But this is a kind of decentralization or backup communications. So in case the cell towers go down or the power grid goes down, you can still reach people. You can still text other people's cell phones if maybe they're in an area that is still online, or you can make phone calls and what have you. There's even an emergency button on the bivy stick that can report your location if you set it up to do so, and send out alerts to, I think, email recipients. In case you're lost in the woods or something, or you got caught in an avalanche while snowboarding, but you can still reach your phone. You just can't move your snowboard out of the snowpack or whatever. I'm not going to imagine more scenarios there, but if you're stuck somewhere, is my point. You're stuck in LA. You can't escape from LA like Kurt Russell because they've closed the highways and the banks, and now it's all chaos. Well, use your satellite phone, and the website is sat123.com, and they are the sponsor for today's show. We appreciate their sponsorship.
You know the perfect use case for this?
What's that?
Is I'm telling you, all of you people who are being shepherded into these 15-minute cities, this is going to be the only way that you're going to be able to get out, potentially, because they can shut those things down, right, Mike?
Yeah, you know what else is cool that related to that? The satellite phone store, they have satellite bandwidth options. I have one of these. I travel with it. And it's a little like desktop unit, and you kind of open the antenna, just kind of point it towards the sky. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be very accurate. And you just kind of point it up there, and it turns into a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then you can connect to that Wi-Fi from your laptop. You can trade crypto via satellite using this technology. When the grid's down.
Yes. Because everyone is saying, what happens when the grid's down? We say, well, I'm glad you asked. We have a sponsor.
Well, exactly. And the thing is, the grid's not down everywhere.
Right.
I mean, it's a big planet. And frankly, if the grid is down everywhere, you have bigger problems to worry about than crypto. The alien invasion is upon us.
They have returned.
Right. Or the solar flares wiped out the planet, and it gets biblical. So crypto is not going to be your concern. Probably your soul might be your concern at that point. But anyway, you can use satellite to do your crypto. Sync your nodes. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do with your crypto. I don't know if the nukes start going off across America because we're in World War III with Russia. I don't know. Should you buy or sell crypto at that moment? I don't know.
I'm thinking you probably shouldn't be syncing your nodes at that point in time. Just saying.
Don't sync your nodes without proper advisories.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, don't sync your nodes, but know your syncs. How about that?
There you go.
All right.
Perfect.
So with that said, anything else to add to today's show?
Can they all be that way?
I know. Cool, right? I love it.
But we do have some amazing guests.
We have some amazing guests.
I have a sneaky suspicion that it didn't stop today, right?
No, this is a great show, and there are more great shows coming.
And you know what? I mean, your 20-year Rolodex, you haven't even begun to tap that.
Yeah, you're right about that. I know a lot of interesting people.
I know you do.
I've known Scott for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's an amazing individual. Again, a revolutionary for our country.
So encouraging.
And
so
I know a lot of people who are revolutionaries. In fact, I'm not friends with boring people, just kind of by design. That's just, sorry, not interested. But the people that I do interact with are unique and powerful and innovative and typically very high IQ and passionate, all these kinds of things. And so it is a very interesting mix. Hey, by the way, are you into cigars? Like, do you smoke cigars?
I smoke cigars. I was always known for going on cigar walks with my crypto channel. Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal. So one of my amazing friends, Gary Haven, who's actually the guy that did the $500,000 donation to independent media.
Right.
He was here a while back, and he brought this container of extremely rare, high-end cigars.
Oh, wow.
Right? And he said, here, I brought you some cigars. And that's when I informed him, I never smoked a cigar. I don't know what to do with these. And he's like, oh, really? Everybody else I know at least smokes one cigar. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. It's just not in my wheelhouse. And I'm the health ranger. I'm not a guy who really smokes or vapes or snorts or any of that stuff. So Todd, there is a box of cigars waiting for you at the studio here.
Perfect.
As a result.
Perfect.
Yes.
Just don't hide it in any bonus holes, and I'll be there.
So am I. No, that ended with the Clinton administration, I'm quite sure.
Right.
So that's not going to take place. The cigars will be sanitized and waiting for you upon your arrival.
Can you do me a favor and just sanitize them with what is it? The
chlorine dioxide?
You got chlorine dioxide.
Yeah, I've got some right here actually still. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Your show just must have pummeled them, because it's like I ordered like 3 weeks ago and I still haven't gotten anything.
Yeah. For everybody watching, Todd's referring to the time that I plugged this small business company that provides chlorine dioxide effervescent tablets for use in like agriculture and sanitizing water tanks and all kinds of things. And it also kills superbugs, and it kills Ebola and whatever pandemics. And so I mentioned that company on a podcast, and they got so many orders. They didn't know where they were coming from. They thought they got hacked at first. They thought that someone was like flooding their order system with orders, and they ended up calling one of their customers and said, no, Mike Adams talked about you. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then their backlog, I think 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So, but hey, the founder of that company is coming on as a guest.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
So there you go. After he finishes working 20 hours a day to catch up on the order.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I can't wait to get those, learn how to use them.
Oh man, I use those every day.
I know. I was telling my wife about putting it in the dishwasher.
Yeah,
and she's like,
that's what I do.
Awesome.
It sanitizes the dishes.
Oh, I think it's brilliant.
Man, there's so many uses for this. It's just incredible. The other day I was cutting my goat's hooves, and I have a sick goat. She's not doing that well, but she's been with us over 10 years, and she had a little like infection between her two hooves.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no problem. So, I pop one of those chlorine dioxide tablets into water, and it makes a bucket of sanitizing water. And I just take that in like a non-needle syringe, just like a squirting syringe.
Right. Yeah.
And I just squirt it in. I just wash out the goat hooves with the chlorine dioxide. It's all sanitized and everything, so stopping any infection. It's perfect for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So just what, a gallon size bucket or?
I use a 3-gallon bucket, and I use the 1 gram in that, and I don't know what it makes. It's like 10 ppm or whatever it is. I'd have to look on the chart. But then the rest of that, I can just take that bucket and I can set it at the floor of the chicken house that I have, and then that chlorine dioxide serves as a deodorizer for the chicken poo that has fallen all over.
Idea.
Yeah, right. So dual purpose.
Great idea.
Yeah, real world stuff.
Decentralized sanitation.
There you
Love
go. Yeah, it helps stop infections in goats, and it deodorizes chicken poo.
Perfect.
What more could you ask for?
And you probably don't want to dump the remnant in your dishwasher. Use a fresh tab for that.
Yeah, exactly. Use a fresh tab for that. But this is, I mean, I'm actually glad you mentioned that, even though it's not really today's topic. But in essence, we are talking about all kinds of solutions for decentralization.
Yes.
And that includes being able to take care of the health of your local, your home, your homestead, your ranch, whatever it is. And I think more and more people are actually, learning about backyard chickens or goats or backyard gardens and maybe how all that works together. And so you need to know about emergency medicine. I mean, I put chlorine dioxide in the water of my chickens, and it helps stop all kinds of diseases.
Do you do that like same 3-gallon bucket and then just take out of the bucket?
I do a lower concentration for the chicken water.
Okay.
Yeah, I can just take it out of the bucket and mix it in with the regular water. But if you have, I also have like a chicken water container that algae likes to grow in it, right? It's kind of maybe a 5-gallon trough, and I'll just pop one of those, tablets just right in the trough, and it keeps the algae down and keeps the water, purified. And it gives them the benefit that when they drink the water, they're getting some internal chlorine dioxide, which is good for chickens.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Right. And my chickens don't need vaccines. I never give them vaccines. I don't medicate chickens. I don't buy anything from Pfizer to give my chickens. or goats or dogs or anything.
You're on their enemy list then.
Yeah, exactly. I just use God's medicine, and it all works. All right. So
Beautiful.
A fascinating show. Great discussion here, Todd. I want to thank you for taking the time to be part of this. And I just think we're almost having too much fun. I feel like we should pay somebody to be able to do the show. Like we must owe somebody something. This is too good to be true.
Right. Yeah. I keep pinching myself, but I can't wait for a year from now when we look back and we have can you imagine we have 100 episodes and we just look back and witness all of the solutions and how momentum bred momentum, and how all of a sudden there's this Bards coin, and that, from that, it's like it was cookie cutter for the next 10 newly invented coins. It's so cool.
Yeah. This is leveraging all the innovation in the crypto space, and especially the privacy space, and marrying that with local food production, local sovereignty, local resiliency. And it couldn't come at a better time based on what's going on in the world and the imminent collapse of Western civilization as we know it. And that's no exaggeration. That's what's going to happen. I mean, you can see it. The cities are collapsing right now.
Oh,
I mean, the office buildings are empty. The streets are filled with zombies and starving people and drug addicts and whatever. So the collapse is upon us. Okay, so Todd, let's wrap this up. But man, what a great episode, great discussion, and I really look forward to next week when we get to talk to more amazing people and help change the world together. I mean, my goodness, it's just an honor to be able to do this.
It really is. It really is. So everybody, thank you for continuing to watch Decentralized TV. Come join us. Come watch us. Mike, you wanna plug our Telegram and let people know
we have a separate segment that already plugged all that.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah. Just go to decentralize.tv and you'll see the episodes there, with more coming each week. You can watch them all for free, and then that has the links to our social media sites and the Telegram site for the chat discussion and Q&A and all that stuff. So
And when people sign up for the email, Mike, it's cool because the day
yeah.
before you inform them, right, who we're going to be interviewing.
That's right. We do send out an early email that tells you the next episode that's about to be posted. So you get a little heads up on that.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. Well, listen, have a great weekend. Thank you. Thanks to you and your awesome production team. This was a great week.
I agree. This is a great way to wrap up the week too. Just amazing. Well, thank you, Todd. Enjoy your food forest. I know you're working on that. That's going to be tons of fun. And I'm going to be doing some mad science stuff myself, which we'll talk about in the future. But in the meantime,
you know what I'm doing? I'm just going to share tomorrow night.
What?
I am going over to southeast of Orlando Airport. There's Galt's Landing. So I'm going to go actually stay at Galt's Landing overnight in one of Mike's villas.
You mean?
So, or Jim Gale's villas.
Yeah, Jim's village.
And and we're just going to have a great time. Just commune in his. We're going to pick our dinner, and he has a chef that's going to be there to be able to prepare what we picked. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome experience. People can actually do that. I don't have the website, but there is a way for if you want to go to Galt's Landing and have that experience, he does make that available. I'll have more information on that next week.
Okay. Well, be sure to get plenty of video that we can use, when we cover it on the show.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, because you're going to document your whole experience with food for us.
I am. I wish I could have done last night, but there was like a mini hurricane that came through, and there wasn't pulling out the iPhone.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. All right. And also we're going to have a guest coming up with de-Googled phones, by the way. So you can get rid of
taking notes.
Yeah, get rid of Siri, get rid of the spy device that everybody carries around. So that's a show coming up. So how cool is that?
Beautiful.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Todd, and thank you all for watching today. Of course, you can check out all these episodes at brighteon.com as well as decentralized.tv. That's the main website. Of course, I'm the founder of Brighteon, and I built the platform so that we can have uncensored discussions like this that are revolutionary for the future of human civilization. You want to be part of the future? Watch these shows and implement the things that we're sharing. And thank you for watching again. God bless you all. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.